I raised him with all my heart, sacrificed everything, and then he called me a burden. I never expected this from my own son.
Hello, I am Helen. This is She Echoed, where real stories of betrayal, resilience, and justice find their voice. Today, you will hear about the moment I realized that sometimes the ones we love most can hurt us the deepest, and how life gave me the chance to turn things around. If it touches something in you, don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Your truth deserves to be echoed. It started like any ordinary evening, or at least I thought it would. The sun was dipping behind the trees, casting long shadows across the sidewalk as I approached Michael's house. My heart carried its usual mixture of love and hope. After all, he was my son, the boy I had raised with all my strength and sacrifice. I had been planning to help him with a few small chores, nothing major, just a quiet presence to show that I still cared. But the moment I stepped through the front door, the warmth I had expected vanished like mist under the morning sun. The air inside was tense, almost suffocating. Michael's expression was rigid, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. Vanessa, his wife, stood behind him with that familiar posture I had come to recognize over the years. Stiff, perfect, judgment lurking in every carefully placed fold of her clothing. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Her disapproval hung in the room like a storm cloud waiting to break. "Mom." Michael's voice was flat, monotone, almost rehearsed, as if he had prepared this sentence for weeks. "You can't stay here anymore. You're a burden." The words struck me like a hammer to the chest. I froze instantly, the floor beneath me seeming to disappear. My hands gripped the edges of the doorway, knuckles white, as the weight of the accusation settled into my bones. A burden. After everything I had done for him, every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every small joy I had set aside to make his life easier, he dared to call me a burden? Vanessa's slight nod was enough confirmation. No protest, no hesitation, just a silent alliance in dismissing me. My throat tightened, but the tears didn't come immediately. Shock can do that to a person, leave you frozen, suspended between disbelief and pain. My body wanted to collapse, but my pride, stubborn and unyielding, kept me upright. I tried to speak, my lips moving before my mind could catch up. "Michael, My voice cracked, betraying the torrent of emotions behind it, but the words died in my throat, swallowed by the chasm that had suddenly opened between us. Years of love, patience, and sacrifice were reduced to a single cold declaration. I was a burden. I remembered every moment I had poured into him. The nights I stayed awake when he had fevers, the scraped knees I kissed better, the homework assignments I helped him finish while my own hands shook from exhaustion. I remembered the meals I skipped so he could eat, the evenings I worked extra shifts so he could have what he needed, the birthdays celebrated quietly because money was tight, the vacations never taken because I prioritized his happiness above my own. And now all of that meant nothing. For a long moment, I stood there in silence, letting the words sink into my heart. I noticed the way Michael avoided my eyes, how Vanessa's posture remained inflexible, and how they expected me to respond, to break, to crumble. But I didn't, not fully. There was a part of me that had always known life could be cruel, and while this was a cruelty of a personal kind, I would not let it consume me entirely. I forced myself to breathe, slow and steady, and finally I whispered, barely audible, "This isn't over." Whether Michael heard me or not, the words were for me, a reminder that even in this moment of despair, I still had a spark left. I left that house with my head held high, stepping into the cool evening air, my body heavy, but my mind alert. I walked slowly, every step an attempt to reclaim the dignity they had tried to strip me from. My mind replayed the scene over and over, each repetition deepening the sting, but also crystallizing a quiet resolve. I thought about the boy I had raised, the man he had become, and the realization that he was no longer just my son. He was a stranger, capable of cruelty I hadn't imagined. As I wandered through the streets, memories came unbidden, sharp and poignant. I remembered the first day I brought him home from the hospital, the tiny fingers that had clutched mine, the first words, the first steps. I remembered his laughter, pure and bright, echoing through our small apartment, a sound that had once filled every corner of my heart. And I remembered the gradual changes, the small dismissals, the subtle indifference, the unspoken judgments that had crept into our relationship over the years until they erupted into this, a declaration of rejection. I also remembered Vanessa, how she had quietly observed our lives, her sharp eyes taking note of every small misstep, every minor imperfection. Perhaps she had poisoned him subtly, slowly shaping the man my son would become. Or perhaps he had always had this cold streak, hidden beneath years of love and patience. Either way, they were aligned now, and I was alone. The wind picked up, rustling the fallen leaves at my feet. I shivered slightly, not from the cold. I shivered from the ache that radiated through me, from the realization that the person I had devoted my life to had cast me aside without a second thought. But beneath the hurt, a quiet ember of defiance began to glow. I knew I couldn't force him to love me, couldn't demand respect or gratitude. Those things could only be earned. But I could claim my own power, protect my own dignity, and perhaps one day teach him a lesson he would never forget. I reached my small apartment and stepped inside. The familiar smells of home offered a tiny comfort. I sank into my favorite chair by the window, staring out at the city lights that twinkle like distant stars. Here I could breathe. Here I could think. And here I began to hatch a plan that would turn this heartbreak into something that neither Michael nor Vanessa could ignore. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. The boy I raised may have kicked me out, may have labeled me a burden, but the woman I had become would not be so easily dismissed. I would find a way to regain control, to show them that I was not powerless, and that respect was never given. It was commanded, quietly, patiently, strategically. And in that quiet moment, I whispered to myself, not as a plea, but as a promise, "This is far from over, Michael. And when it's done, you will remember who I am." The night was quiet, but my mind was far from peaceful. I sat by the window, staring at the city lights that flickered like distant promises, letting the shadows of my own thoughts stretch long and heavy across the walls. Every memory of Michael and Vanessa played in my head over and over, like a haunting melody I couldn't escape. Yet amidst the ache and betrayal, a small, determined spark began to grow. I thought about the apartment, the bills I had struggled to pay, the nights I had gone hungry so he could eat, the years I had sacrificed without ever asking for a return. And I realized something that made my chest tighten, not with sorrow this time, but with clarity. I didn't need them. I had my life, my dignity, and my wits. And if they thought they could dismiss me as a burden, I would show them that I was far from powerless. The next morning, I set my plan into motion. It began with small steps, almost invisible, like the first brushstrokes on a blank canvas. I reviewed my finances, checking accounts I had quietly built over the years, savings tucked away from the world, money they assumed I didn't have. And there it was, enough to take the first step in reclaiming control over the very home I had helped Michael grow into a man. I contacted a real estate attorney, not for legal battles or confrontation, but for knowledge. Knowledge was my shield. Knowledge would give me the upper hand without them realizing it until it was too late. I asked questions, carefully noting every detail about tenant rights, property ownership, and how one could legally reclaim leverage in a situation like mine. Every answer made the fire inside me burn brighter, my confidence building with each passing hour. Then came the most delicate part: observation. I watched from a distance, paying attention to their routines, the subtle ways Vanessa tried to assert control, the moments when Michael's ego blinded him to common sense. I discovered patterns: when they left for work, when they had friends over, even the moments they assumed I wasn't watching. Every detail became a piece of the puzzle I was assembling with painstaking care. And yet, even as I planned, there was no malice in my heart. This wasn't revenge born from anger. It was a reclamation born from years of sacrifice and silent endurance. I wanted them to recognize what they had lost, yes, but more than that, I wanted to reclaim my dignity, to stand tall without fear of being dismissed or disrespected again. One afternoon, I walked past their house, pretending to browse the nearby market. I watched through the half-drawn curtains as Vanessa arranged flowers on the dining table, her movements precise and deliberate, like she was setting a stage. Michael leaned back in his chair, scrolling through his phone with a smug ease, completely unaware that the mother he had called a burden was now watching, calculating, preparing. I felt a strange mix of emotions: pride in my patience, sorrow for the relationship that had fractured, and an unexpected thrill at the thought of taking control of the situation. My plan wasn't just about money or property. It was about reclaiming my story, proving that even when life had dealt me a bitter hand, I could still choose the cards I would play. Over the next few days, I made subtle moves to assert my presence. I began by quietly taking over certain household accounts that Michael assumed he controlled: utility bills, maintenance payments, even insurance policies. Each small act was a reminder that I was still here, still capable, still present. And though he didn't notice immediately, I knew the moment of reckoning would come. I also prepared myself emotionally. I journaled late into the night, not to dwell on the pain, but to sharpen my mind, to chart out every possible scenario and outcome. I imagined their reactions, every facial expression, every possible excuse they might make, and I prepared responses that were calm, firm, and unyielding. This wasn't about confrontation for its own sake. It was about strategy. Every move I made was deliberate, measured, and designed to give me the advantage without stooping to cruelty. And then I began the final piece of my plan: the property. I had quietly purchased a small house a few blocks away months earlier, a place no one knew about. It was modest, yet elegant, filled with light and warmth. I had imagined it as a sanctuary for myself, a place of safety and independence. But now it would serve a dual purpose: a symbol of my autonomy and the first step in reclaiming what Michael had so carelessly dismissed. By the end of the week, I had everything in place. The property was legally mine, the finances secured, the knowledge and observation in my favor. And yet, even as the pieces came together, I reminded myself to be patient. Patience would be my greatest weapon. They might think they had won, that they had pushed me aside and diminished my presence in their lives, but the truth was far different. Every day I waited, every subtle step I took was building toward a moment of undeniable clarity, a moment when they would realize that underestimating me had been their gravest mistake. That evening, I sat in my small, sunlit living room, a cup of tea warming my hands, and I allowed myself a quiet smile. The hurt of rejection was still there, sharp and raw, but it was tempered by a growing sense of purpose. I was no longer just a mother who had been kicked out. I was a woman, reclaiming her life, her story, and her power. I knew that the path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, doubt, and moments when the past threatened to weigh me down. But I also knew that I was ready. I had endured neglect, dismissal, and betrayal, and here I was, standing, planning, and preparing for the moment when the scales would tip back in my favor. As I looked out at the city once more, the lights no longer seemed distant or untouchable. They were mine to claim, just as I was reclaiming my own life. And deep down, I allowed myself a single quiet truth. No matter how much Michael and Vanessa tried to erase me, they could never diminish my spirit. The first move had been made, the game was set, and I was ready to play. With patience, strategy, and a heart that refused to be broken again. Morning light spilled into my apartment, soft and golden, as if the world itself wanted to witness the quiet resolve settling in me. I sipped my tea, letting the warmth fill the emptiness left behind by Michael and Vanessa's harsh words. The sting of their rejection was still there, a lingering ache, but now it was tempered by clarity and purpose. I had survived, and survival was never enough. I wanted to thrive. I reviewed my plan again. The small house I had bought months before, the one tucked away on a quiet street, was now more than just a property. It was my leverage. I could turn the tables, but I needed the perfect approach, one that would assert authority without seeming vengeful. I wanted them to understand, gently but firmly, that dismissing me had consequences they could not ignore. Days passed as I prepared. I polished the floors, dusted the shelves, and even had small repairs done that I had long postponed. The house felt alive with intention, each corner a silent announcement. I was ready. I imagined the day they would come knocking, not in mockery or defiance, but in recognition that the woman they had cast aside was now in control. Then the opportunity presented itself sooner than expected. Michael called, his voice carrying that same casual arrogance that had once infuriated me. "Mom, you're not coming by today, are you?" he asked, a question dripping with assumption. "Vanessa and we just don't need you here." I smiled quietly. The calmness in my voice was deliberate. "Actually, Michael," I said, letting the words linger, "I was just thinking about that house on Elm Street. You know, the one I bought last year?" There was a pause on the other end of the line, the kind of silence that betrays both surprise and curiosity. "Yes? Why?" "I'm thinking about renting it out," I replied evenly, letting the casual tone mask the precision behind my words. "And, well, it just so happens it would be perfect for you and Vanessa." I could hear the hesitation, the subtle shift from dismissal to intrigue. Vanessa had always believed that independence and security were her domain, yet now they were being presented, quietly, by the very person she had looked down upon. You're serious?" Michael finally stammered. "Completely," I said. "The terms would be fair, of course, but the rent, well, it reflects the market. And since it's such a perfect fit, I'll expect it to be paid on time." I hung up, letting the words settle in the stillness of the apartment. It was simple, measured, and most importantly, entirely within my control. I was no longer the one who begged for attention or approval. I was now the authority. Over the next few days, I prepared the house for their arrival. Fresh linens, clean floors, and even subtle but unmistakable air of order and dignity. Every detail mattered. The moment they stepped inside, they would sense the shift, not just in the house, but in me. When they arrived, Vanessa's nose was upturned, eyes scanning the house as if she were inspecting a property she already owned. Michael predictably tried to act indifferent, though his stiff posture betrayed his awareness of my quiet power. "Welcome," I said, my voice calm, almost gentle. "I hope the house meets your expectations." Vanessa's eyes flickered, a mix of irritation and surprise. "It's fine," she said curtly, but her tone lacked conviction. Michael remained silent, shifting awkwardly, caught between pride and embarrassment. I guided them through each room, pointing out the upgrades, the repairs, the thoughtful touches. Every detail mattered. The moment they stepped inside, they would sense the shift, not just in the house, but in me. As we finished the tour, I casually mentioned the rent again, letting it hang in the air like a quiet challenge. "It's a fair price," I said, "and I expect punctual payments. We can discuss the details once you've settled in." The subtle firmness in my tone had its effect. Michael and Vanessa exchanged a glance, that unspoken communication between partners that conveyed shock and grudging respect. For the first time, they weren't in control. I was, and it felt exhilarating. That night, after they left, I sat by the window, the city lights shimmering like distant stars. I allowed myself a moment of quiet triumph, not in malice, but in justice. I had turned their rejection into opportunity, their dismissal into leverage. And in that transformation, I found a peace that was stronger than anger, more satisfying than revenge. I realized that the journey ahead would not be simple. Michael and Vanessa would test boundaries, question my intentions, and perhaps even try to regain control. But I was ready. I had reclaimed my power, not with confrontation, but with quiet authority and unwavering patience. They had underestimated me, and that was their greatest mistake. As I closed my journal that night, I felt the first true sense of liberation. The woman they had cast out was no longer lost or forgotten. She was present, confident, and fully aware of the influence she now held. And as the days turned into weeks, I knew the story was only beginning. The first morning after Michael and Vanessa moved in felt almost surreal. Sunlight streamed through the windows of the Elm Street house, casting long, golden beams across the polished wooden floors. I sat at the kitchen table, savoring my coffee, letting the quiet hum of the city outside remind me that I was no longer powerless. I could hear their voices upstairs, the faint echoes of movement, laughter, and even mild arguments. Normally, I would have felt a pang of loneliness, but now there was satisfaction, a calm, steady acknowledgement that the tables had turned. I wasn't just present, I was needed, though they didn't realize it yet. Later that morning, the phone rang. Michael's voice came through, strained but polite, trying to mask the tension I could hear so clearly. "Mom, hi, we wanted to ask about a few things around the house. There's a leaky faucet and," he hesitated, "some of the bills, your guidance would be helpful." I smiled softly. "Of course," I said, letting warmth lace my voice. "I'll come by later and we can go through everything. But Michael, remember, part of this is about learning responsibility. I'll help, but you'll need to step up too." There was silence, a subtle acknowledgement of my authority, before he muttered a quiet, "Yes, thank you, Mom." Hanging up, I felt a mix of satisfaction and anticipation. This was no longer about confrontation or revenge. It was about balance, about showing them that respect and accountability were earned, not demanded. When I arrived at the house that afternoon, Vanessa was in the kitchen sorting through bills and paperwork with an air of mild frustration. She looked up as I entered, surprise flickering across her face. "Oh, you came," she said, her tone uncertain. "Yes," I replied gently, placing my bag down. "I thought it would be easier if we went through everything together." She nodded, still cautious, and we sat together at the kitchen table. I guided them through each utility, each payment, and each responsibility, explaining the importance of deadlines and attentiveness. My tone was calm, instructional, and patient, never condescending, though the message was clear. As the afternoon wore on, a subtle shift began to take place. Vanessa's shoulders relaxed slightly, and even Michael's defensiveness softened. I could see the realization in their expressions. This was not the woman they had once dismissed. She was wise, capable, and firm, yet nurturing in her guidance. I paused for a moment, letting the silence settle. I know this may feel uncomfortable, but life doesn't hand us lessons gently. We learn through experience, responsibility, and respect. I'm here to help, not to punish. Vanessa looked down at the papers, a flash of humility in her eyes. I didn't realize. We just assumed. She trailed off, leaving unspoken regret hanging in the air. Michael, unusually quiet, finally spoke. "Mom, I think we've underestimated you. We thought we knew everything." I met their eyes, my gaze steady. "You thought wrong," I said, softly, a hint of warmth in my tone. "And that's okay. That's why I'm here, to guide, to support, and to ensure that no one ever feels like they're above learning again." The rest of the day unfolded with small, deliberate victories. Each task completed under my guidance, each question answered, became a quiet assertion of the power I now held. I was no longer merely their mother. I was a mentor, a landlord, and a gentle authority figure they had to acknowledge. As evening fell, I watched from the doorway as they moved through the house. Vanessa's demeanor was calmer, more attentive, and even Michael seemed to carry himself with a humility I hadn't seen in years. The subtle shift was unmistakable. The respect they had once denied me was beginning to root, nurtured by patience and quiet insistence. That night, I returned to my own apartment, my steps light and heart steady. The satisfaction was deeper than triumph. It was profound, a realization that influence did not need to be loud or forceful. It was in presence, in consistency, and in the quiet power of being unwavering. I journaled, as always, capturing every glance, every gesture, every fleeting moment of recognition. I knew the story was unfolding slowly, deliberately, and that each day brought me closer to the full reckoning I had envisioned. As I closed my journal and looked out the window at the city lights, I allowed myself a private smile. The woman who had been cast out was no longer invisible, no longer disregarded. She was present, capable, and quietly shaping the lives of those who had once tried to dismiss her. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning of their awakening, a slow, steady understanding that actions, respect, and accountability were never optional, and that those who had thought themselves free from consequence would now learn otherwise. The following week unfolded with a mixture of routine and quiet tension. I could sense the subtle changes in Michael and Vanessa, the way they paused before speaking, the carefulness in their steps, the way responsibilities once ignored were now gradually acknowledged. It was almost imperceptible to an outsider, but to me, every gesture, every hesitated glance was evidence of a shift I had set into motion. That morning, as I entered the house, I noticed the kitchen was immaculate. The bills were organized neatly in a folder labeled "To be paid," and Vanessa had already brewed coffee, a small but significant gesture of acknowledgement. I felt a swell of quiet pride. The transformation was subtle, but it was there. They were learning, not just about responsibility, but about respect, and inadvertently, humility. Michael approached me with a folder in his hands. "Mom, I went through the accounts again. I think I miscalculated a few things yesterday." His voice was hesitant, tinged with embarrassment, but also with a rare sincerity I hadn't heard in years. I smiled softly. "Let's take a look together," I said, guiding him to the living room, where sunlight poured through the windows, illuminating the dust motes in the air like tiny golden stars. We went through the numbers methodically. Every correction, every adjustment, was accompanied by small nods of acknowledgement from Michael, a silent admission that he needed guidance. I didn't rush him, didn't scold him for past mistakes. Instead, I offered gentle instruction, letting him arrive at conclusions with his own reasoning, reinforcing that learning was a process, not a lecture. Vanessa hovered nearby, her arms crossed but her expression softening as she watched. I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes, a dawning realization that the woman she had once dismissed as a burden was now indispensable. After several hours, the accounts balanced. Michael exhaled, a weight lifted, and looked at me with something like gratitude. I didn't realize how much I depended on you," he admitted quietly. "You've always depended on me," I said gently, "but it's about understanding how to balance that dependence with your own effort. Life doesn't give second chances easily. Sometimes lessons are learned the hard way, but there's still lessons worth learning." As I spoke, Vanessa finally interjected, her voice quieter than usual. "Mom, I didn't see it before. I judged you too quickly. I thought you were just, well, a reminder of the past we wanted to leave behind. But you're capable, and I see it now." I met her eyes steadily. "It's never too late to change perspective," I said. "What matters is what we do after realization dawns. Actions, not words, define character." Her gaze dropped to the floor, a mixture of remorse and reluctant admiration. Michael, watching the exchange, nodded silently, as if acknowledging the invisible boundary he had crossed too often in the past. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the sky in shades of orange and lavender, I sat quietly in the living room. Michael and Vanessa had retreated to their respective corners, murmuring quietly over plans and schedules. The house felt different now, not hostile, not indifferent, but tensed with a fragile respect. It was Vanessa who approached me first, carrying a small envelope. I wanted to give this to you," she said hesitantly. Inside was a note, neatly written, expressing a simple apology and an acknowledgement of the guidance I had provided. It was modest, but it carried weight, a tangible reflection of a lesson absorbed. I accepted it with a nod, my voice calm but firm. "Thank you. It means a lot, not because of the paper, but because of the understanding it represents. Growth begins with acknowledgement, and acknowledgement is the first step toward genuine respect." As the days turned into weeks, the lessons became routine. I observed quietly as Michael handled errands with greater thoughtfulness, as Vanessa prepared meals with care, and as both of them learned to communicate without impatience or defensiveness. The small victories accumulated, imperceptible in the moment, but monumental in the larger story of our lives. One afternoon, Michael paused mid-task, looking at me with a question in his eyes. "Mom, do you think we can really ever make up for the way we treated you before?" I took a moment to consider my words carefully. "Compensation isn't measured in apologies alone," I said softly. "It's measured in consistent effort, in changed behavior, in respect that isn't demanded but freely given. That's the only way true reconciliation works." He nodded slowly, the lesson sinking in, and for the first time, I sensed a genuine understanding, a quiet, unspoken promise that the past would no longer define our interactions. That night, as I returned to my own apartment, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment.
Not because I had orchestrated a perfect revenge, not because I had elevated myself above them, but because I had quietly transformed the dynamics of our family. Respect was no longer optional, it was necessary, earned through presence, guidance, and patience. I sat by the window, journaling the events of the week, noting every moment of progress, every subtle acknowledgement, every lesson absorbed. This was more than a personal victory. It was the restoration of balance in relationships that had once teetered on neglect, arrogance, and ignorance. As the city lights blinked alive in the darkness outside, I allowed myself a private smile. I had been cast aside, dismissed, even mocked, but now I had a place of influence and authority, a subtle power, earned not through confrontation, but through wisdom, patience, and unwavering presence. And deep inside, I knew the story was far from over. There were more lessons to teach, more realizations to awaken, and more moments of quiet justice to unfold, all while maintaining the delicate balance between guidance and independence. This was no longer about anger or resentment. It was about reclaiming dignity, asserting worth, and showing that those who had dismissed me would never forget the woman they underestimated. The first seeds had been sown, and as I looked out into the night, I knew they would grow into a full understanding, slowly, patiently, and inevitably.
Days passed, each one layering subtle lessons over Michael and Vanessa, their understanding of responsibility and respect gradually solidifying. I observed quietly from my apartment, aware of how small shifts in behavior often carry the most profound impact. It wasn't dramatic or loud, it was the quiet recalibration of their priorities that struck me the hardest. One afternoon, I received a call from the building manager, a minor maintenance issue in the apartment Michael and Vanessa rented. I could hear the strain in the manager's voice. Apparently, they had neglected routine upkeep and the consequences were beginning to surface. I smiled faintly. This was the perfect moment. A tangible, unavoidable lesson in accountability. Arriving at their apartment, under the guise of checking in on a friendly matter, I was greeted with the awkward tension that had been growing ever since I had assumed the landlord role. Michael attempted a casual greeting. Vanessa offered a tight-lipped smile, but the air crackled with silent acknowledgement. Things were about to shift again. "We have a plumbing issue," I said, motioning to the faucet in the kitchen that had begun leaking. "It's nothing serious, but if left unattended, it could get worse." Michael swallowed, his fingers brushing nervously against the counter. We can fix it," he muttered, though I could see the hesitation, the unfamiliarity with responsibility weighing heavily on him. I stepped closer, not to lecture, but to guide. "Michael, Vanessa, let's approach this together. I'll explain how to coordinate the repair and cover costs responsibly. Consider it part of learning the consequences of oversight." As we worked, I watched them stumble at first. Vanessa struggled to understand the repair estimates. Michael hesitated over contacting the plumber, but gradually, step by step, their confidence grew. They were not just solving a household problem, they were learning the weight of choices, the importance of foresight, and the value of accountability. By the end of the afternoon, the leak was fixed, the bills accounted for, and a sense of pride replaced the tension in the room. They glanced at each other, silent recognition passing between them. Even Vanessa's posture softened. I could see the respect in her eyes now, a respect not demanded, but earned. Later, as evening settled in, I noticed Michael lingering, a question forming in his expression. "Mom, I've been thinking," he began cautiously, "about everything, about the rent, the lessons, about the way I treated you." I turned, letting the golden light from the window wash over my face, highlighting the lines of experience and patience etched by years of life. "Yes, Michael? I never realized
how much I underestimated you," he admitted, his voice low but sincere. "I thought independence meant pushing you aside. I thought responsibility was something I could ignore, but it's not. And I want to make things right." I held his gaze, my heart swelling with quiet satisfaction. Acknowledgement is the first step. The second is consistent action. Words alone aren't enough, Michael. True change is measured in effort, in deeds that reflect understanding. Vanessa stepped forward, hesitance giving way to determination. "Mom, I want to apologize too. I encouraged him in ways that weren't fair to you. I see now you've been patient, guiding us, even when we didn't deserve it." I regarded her, seeing the subtle vulnerability in her stance, the softening that had taken weeks to appear. "It takes courage to admit error," I said gently, "and it takes greater courage to act differently going forward. Let that guide your choices." The following days were marked by subtle shifts. Michael began to manage household expenses with thoughtfulness, checking in with me occasionally for advice rather than assuming he knew everything. Vanessa engaged more actively in the household, planning meals, coordinating tasks, and even taking initiative to communicate with the building management without waiting for direction. One evening, as I returned from my apartment, I noticed a note slipped under my door. It was from Michael and Vanessa, an invitation to dinner, not out of obligation, but as a gesture of genuine appreciation. My eyes moistened slightly as I read their words. "We want to show our gratitude for your guidance, your patience, and the lessons we are finally learning. We hope you'll join us tonight." At dinner, I observed them closely. The conversation flowed naturally, with laughter punctuating the room, and for the first time in years, I felt an ease in their company that had been absent before. The subtle respect, the acknowledgement of past mistakes, and the willingness to learn created a foundation for genuine reconciliation. After dinner, Michael quietly asked if we could talk privately. We stepped into the living room, the shadows of the evening stretching long across the floor. "Mom, I want to thank you properly for everything, for not giving up on us even when we treated you unfairly. I realize now how wrong I was, how selfish I've been." I reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Michael, the most important thing is that you understand the value of guidance, respect, and humility. Life will test you in many ways, and these lessons are just the beginning. Never forget them." As I walked home that night, the city lights casting reflections in the quiet puddles from the afternoon rain, I felt a sense of closure mixed with anticipation. The hard part wasn't over. Life always has more lessons to teach, but I had seen the first genuine steps towards redemption and change. Michael and Vanessa were no longer obstacles to my peace. They were participants in a journey of growth, slowly learning to recognize the weight of their choices. I realized then that the most powerful form of influence isn't confrontation or punishment, it's presence, consistency, patience, and the subtle guidance that allows people to find their own way to understanding. The rent increase had been a catalyst, but the real lesson was deeper. Respect is earned, dignity cannot be taken for granted, and even those who push us away can learn to value what they once dismissed. Sitting by my window that night, I allowed myself a quiet smile. The chapter of neglect and disrespect had been replaced by one of understanding and subtle justice. I had become more than a mother cast aside. I had become a quiet force, shaping the lives of those who once underestimated me without ever compromising my own integrity. And deep inside, I knew the story was far from over. Life always has another twist, another revelation, but this time, I was ready. I had reclaimed my power, my dignity, and my voice. The seeds had been sown. The lessons were being learned, and the reckoning, subtle yet inevitable, had begun.
Life often teaches us in ways we least expect. Sometimes the people closest to us, those we love and nurture, may fail to recognize our value. They may push us aside, dismiss our guidance, or even treat us as a burden. And yet, in these moments of rejection, we discover the true measure of our strength. I learned that dignity is not given. It is preserved through patience, wisdom, and quiet resilience. By holding my ground, by asserting my boundaries with clarity and fairness, I showed Michael and Vanessa that respect must be earned and that life has a way of teaching those lessons when they are most needed. True justice isn't about revenge or punishment. It's about creating conditions that allow others to see the consequences of their actions and guiding them toward understanding. The rent increase was never just about money. It was a symbol, a mirror reflecting their neglect and disregard. It allowed them to confront their mistakes, take responsibility, and grow into more accountable, compassionate adults. I realized that influence is most powerful when it is steady and consistent, not loud or vengeful. Presence, guidance, and patience can be far more transformative than anger or confrontation. By maintaining my own dignity and refusing to be diminished, I became a quiet but undeniable force in shaping the people around me. And finally, the journey taught me that hope never dies. Even after being treated unfairly, there is always a path to reconciliation, understanding, and growth, if we are willing to act with integrity and wisdom. Life has a way of balancing the scales in subtle, beautiful ways, often giving us the power to turn adversity into lessons and hurt into growth. So to anyone who feels cast aside, underestimated, or unappreciated, hold your head high. Your strength, your patience, and your unwavering sense of self-worth are your greatest tools. Life may challenge you, but it also gives you the chance to reclaim your power, teach your lessons, and shape your story. And as I watched Michael and Vanessa begin to understand truly and deeply the weight of their choices, I knew this: every slight, every dismissal, every moment of being undervalued can become the seed for transformation, both for ourselves and for those we guide. Respect cannot be demanded, but it can be earned. Dignity cannot be taken, but it can be preserved. And even when life pushes us aside, we can rise again, stronger, wiser, and fully in command of our own story. Because in the end, life's lessons are rarely lost. They echo, and those who listen carefully will always find their way back to truth, understanding, and justice.
Thank you for spending your time with me. If this story touched something in you, don't forget to hit that like button, share, and subscribe. Feel free to share your story in the comments. Your truth, your story needs to be echoed. This is She Echoed, where every story finds its voice.